This is Gary Rabio. I'm president of the Canadian Foundation for Economic Education. Have been doing that for about 30 or 40 years, so had obviously a good time doing it. We have over that time addressed many audiences. We were largely focused on young people for a good portion of our history, but recently we have also addressed the needs of seniors. And you'll find on your table there a couple of things from us, an information on resources that CFEE has, and two resources that we have developed recently for seniors. One that's Let's Talk Money Seniors, which focuses on discussions between seniors and their adult children. And then Money and You Seniors Edition, which is basically a backgrounder on all topics that we think are of interest to seniors in a new publication that is now online as well. So Money and You Seniors Edition and Let's Talk Money Seniors. That's what the focus of this session is on seniors and closing the conversation gap. We have long done a program called Talk with Our Kids About Money. And when we turned to something that we wanted to do with seniors, we thought, hey, why not move it up a generation or two? So rather than parents talking with their young kids, how about seniors talking with their adult children? And as we ventured into that area, we found that it was an incredible need, that so many conversations that could be had, should be had, and would be beneficial to have, we're not having and not having been had. And so that's what the focus of that initiative is. That's what our focus is today. The discussion you're going to delight in, you've got three speakers, all of whom could be keynote speakers. We're going to start off with Bonnie-Jeanne MacDonald, who's the Director of Financial Security Research at the National Institute on Aging at Ryerson. Her research focuses on financial health aspects of Canada's aging population. Also, we're focusing a lot on the link between financial health and mental health, which comes into play for many seniors as well. You're then going to hear from Jim Grieve, who is the Executive Director of the Retired Teachers of Ontario, which is a bit of a misnomer because they're now a national organization all across the country. And he previously served as the ADM in the early years for the Ontario Ministry of Education and was responsible for many programs and policies that were established there. You're then going to hear from Daphne, who is the Dean of the Ted Rogers School of Management. She has expertise in a wide range of areas, but she's also going to share some personal insights and personal stories that are relevant to the topic of discussion today. We're then going to, after our initial three speakers make comment, we're going to share with you some big ideas. We and RTO and others challenge the seniors in our networks to give us some good ideas for how seniors could be addressed in terms of policy initiatives that could help them. And from that, we selected 5 to share with you today. Kevin Maynard, our VP of CFEE, will be joining us on stage to share with you those ideas. Our panelists will be commenting on them and also sharing some ideas of their own. So get us underway will be Bonnie-Jeanne. She'll be first to the podium, and I'll turn it over to you. Thanks. Bonnie-Jeanne MacDonald.
Great. Thank you, Gary. Can everyone hear me okay? Terrific. Okay, so I'm Bonnie-Jeanne MacDonald. I'm an actuary by profession, but I'm also the Director of Financial Security at the National Institute on Aging at Toronto Metropolitan University. We started just a number of years ago at TRSM, and we're a relatively new institute. We have a really unique mandate, and that is normally, especially from the financial side, we look at aging really from that financial lens. But what we realize is that we want to really effectively help seniors age with dignity and independence. We have to take together all the aspects of aging, so take a really holistic approach, the health and the wealth sides together. So that's what the NIA aims to do, and that's what I'm passionate about, is to really take what we learn from academia, combine it from insights in industry and solutions in industry and government as well, in Canada, but also around the world, bring them together so we can actually come up with real solutions that's going to help Canada's aging population. So I'm really happy to be speaking today and just be discussing some of the problems that we see facing Canada's aging population and the economy at large, but then also later I'll be discussing some of the solutions we've been working on at the National Institute on Aging. The research I'll be mentioning, by the way, really is just touching on some of the research papers we have at our institute. So anyone interested in knowing more, please do go back to that. So by definition, retirement financial security basically means you can maintain your standard of living when you go into retirement. But you can see the gaps in the Canadian system just by looking at the retirement income system. So the majority of Canadians will be relying on old age security, guaranteed income supplement, and the Canada Pension Plan. And from that, they'll be getting about $20,000 of lifetime pension income that will last for life. However, the rest of the money, $20,000 may not be enough for most people, and the rest of the money is really supposed to come from private savings and from your employer pension plan. But 80% of Canadians in the private sector aren't even in a pension plan. And the rest is really supposed to be made up through savings. So everyone knows, you go to your financial planner, everyone's saying save more for retirement, save for retirement. And it's really just been the overarching theme for the last few decades. But there's a major problem with that. Saving more into a retirement plan lacks what people actually need in retirement, and that's a pension. Having a pot of money is not going to provide you with that lifetime replacement to your earnings that people so badly need. And if you think about it from an individual's perspective, can you imagine you're getting to 65, you have a huge pot of money, and you're basically being asked to do an impossible task, something that actuaries, no financial expert in the world can actually do this. You're basically being asked to draw down a pot of money that can change in an unknown way to pay for unknown expenses, with costs that will change in an unknown way because of inflation, over an unknown time horizon, simply because we don't know how long we're going to live. This is an impossible task. And the sad irony is that when people actually run out of money, it's at an age that they're most vulnerable. So if you run out of money and you're 50, you can just work more. You can go get a loan. There's a lot of options. When you're 90, you don't have options. And usually your health is very restricted. So it's really a bad case scenario. So we've known for decades that Canada's population is aging and that it's really going to put stress on the social programs. However, all the public policy debate has always been around two programs, and that's our public pensions, which is predominantly old age security and Canada Pension Plan, and primary health care. But it's really neglected a huge strain that's going to emerge as the population ages, and that's long-term care. We really saw it during COVID. Now, there's two things that seniors want in retirement. And that's basically they want to maintain their standard of living, but they also want to age in their own home. And this is something we saw really strongly during the pandemic. At the NIA, we did a really big survey. We basically found, believe it or not, 100% of people say they want to age independently in their own home. But clearly, I've already explained, the public system is only giving people $20,000 a year. That's not going to be effective. Who's going to pay for this? Unfortunately, the long-term care system, it's not financially sustainable. No projections have been done. My colleagues, Dr. John Hurdy's from Waterloo and Dr. Michael Wolfson, former Stats Canada assistant statistician, we actually at the NIA, we did a very large-scale population microsimulation projection of the long-term care costs, which is nursing homes and home care. And what we actually found was that the cost of long-term care is going to change from $22 billion to $71 billion in today's dollars. And that's only one half of the problem. The other half is the fact that is the home care. What Canadians don't realize is that long-term care is not a guaranteed service. And historically in Canada and around the world, the backbone of long-term care has been family. And in fact, in our study, what we found with very high quality data that 75% of the hours delivered to seniors in their home is done by family members. Now, unfortunately, baby boomers weren't just the biggest generation in history with the longest life expectancies. They're also the first generation in history to what? Have relatively few children. So this is a very, very strained system that's not sustainable. So basically, if you actually took the care the family does and put it onto the public, that's going to add another $28 billion, making it $98 billion, and therefore it'd basically be a quarter of all provincial and federal personal income tax revenue. These are all really big numbers. The take-home story is that if we think we have problems today, which we saw during the pandemic, these problems are nothing compared to what's going to be happening over the next decade or so. So the reality is that Canadians really are facing a perfect storm as they go into retirement, and that's because the money they have in retirement is actually going down because there's been a movement away from employer pension plans and interest rates are low. At the same time, the cost of retirement has gone up because people are living longer and they have those fewer children to support them. They're going to have to pay out of pocket to actually provide those services that traditionally have been done by the family. So that's the problem. Fortunately, at the NIA, we do work on a lot of the solutions, and some of them have been very successful, and they're really moving. I know everyone's like, ah! So there are solutions. We've moved the needle, and I think later on in the discussion, we will talk about some of the solutions. But what I will stress is that a lot of these solutions do need long lead times, and really kind of long-term financial security of seniors is a problem that's going to affect the entire population. So it's something we cannot afford to ignore. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bonnie-Jeanne. And now will be Jim Grieve,
Okay, thank you.
Executive Director of RTO.
Yeah, good morning. Can you hear me? So I am a senior, proudly a senior, and I represent 83,000 seniors who worked in education and retired. Very fortunate group because they all have a pretty decent defined benefit pension plan, which is one of the secrets of success for so many of our members. Of our 83,000 members, 180 of them are over 100 years old. Teaching, working in education is good for your health. Just read that. So we are a bilingual organization. We are Canada-wide. We're not-for-profit. And anybody who's worked in early years or K-12 education or post-secondary can belong and can have their benefits with us. And we're the largest provider of health benefits for the education retiree sector across Canada with over 100,000 lives insured. But we go much beyond the provision of health and health insurance. We do a huge amount of advocacy. I love what Bonnie-Jeanne has sort of scoped out as being the problem. You know, this notion of dependence upon long-term care, which we now understand is just it may be a necessary evil in our lives, but it has to be sort of that very final move. There needs to be something in between. So we spend a great deal of time listening to our 83,000 members, five of whom, or four of the five that you're going to hear big ideas from today are actually RTO members, I'm delighted to say, and looking forward to hearing from them. But what are we doing, you know, on behalf of our seniors and of Canadians generally in their senior years? So we are absolutely stressing an advocacy for a national seniors strategy. How can a country like Canada, with universal health care, not have a national pharmacare plan? It's beyond my imagining, and we're the only country with universal health care that doesn't have it. It makes no sense. We are pushing MPs, MPPs, MLAs, anyone who will listen to us all the time on that issue. And making sure that, you know, income security, Bonnie-Jeanne has really laid it out beautifully. The problem is income insecurity for seniors. And by the way, we're the fastest growing population in Canada at this point. Those over 65, you know, way outnumber those under 15. I love the fact that, and you're going to hear about these, Alice Lee, who's an RTOERO member, has talked about seniors' business hubs and incubating ideas for people who've retired necessarily in sort of their late 50s, mid to late 50s, and some business strategies that you may have read about. You're certainly going to hear about from Kevin shortly. And, you know, our members deeply attached to the issue of seniors fraud. I mean, they are being defrauded all the time. And I don't know about you, but I've put my phone away, but my phone is alive with offers and pseudo offers all the time, all of which are scams and are serious problems. So the need for financial literacy is profound. The need for financial literacy for seniors, also profound. The problem is, you don't start learning financial literacy when you're 65. It's too late. Not too late, but it's getting awfully late. You know, having been an ADM in the early years and rolling out full-day kindergarten in Ontario, that's where you begin with literacy. That's why I love the work that CFEE has been doing in the schools. You start teaching about how you manage your money and what you need to do in order to be successful in life, especially in long-term life, and you start that very early in school. I've talked about universal pharmacare. It just drives me crazy that we don't have that agreement yet, and it bothers me that we have different definitions of national pharmacare, much different. And I'm anxious to see what the federal government actually puts together or hopes to cobble together that they will call universal pharmacare. Aging at home, this is on the minds of all of our members. It should be on your mind as well. The issue of in Toronto and urban Canada, naturally occurring retirement communities, NORCs as they're called, are extremely interesting as a service locale, provided we can provide some measure of service beyond hospitals and go and meet the seniors where they actually live. You know, Laura Kozlowski, also an RTOERO member, wrote one of the big ideas you're going to hear about, and that is this notion of creating space for small homes. Affordability of homes is out of reach for many Canadians at this point. But for seniors living in large homes who hope to sell one day, if they can indeed sell, given the market these days, the idea of having small properties where you can occupy a space while you're, accessing the kind of services that you need is compelling and interesting. And what Laura has written about is largely rural-based, which is kind of cool, but it's certainly happening in large cities like Ottawa, Toronto, and Windsor, and Calgary, where you have small homes being built on portions of family lots, which is interesting. Another idea that you're going to hear a little bit about are mobile medical services. When I was working as a director of education in Peel, we instituted mobile early learning centers. We called them Lions, Learning in Our Neighborhood. These were big outfitted RVs that literally went to the areas that had no service, had no childcare service, no early learning, no literacy service, and took them to the communities and parked them there every week, once a week. The same concept that Peggy Lashmere has written about here on one of the big ideas, I think is extremely important, worth pursuing. 1 minute, got it. The other two areas of advocacy we're pursuing are geriatric healthcare. We have 300 geriatricians in this entire country. 300. 150 of them are in Ontario. Something's wrong with this equation. We put in a $3 million endowed chair in geriatric medicine at the University of Toronto, Women's College Hospital. Dr. Paula Rochon is in that chair for the second 5-year term. We're making a difference by bringing on new young geriatricians. We're all going to need MDs who are into geriatric health care. These all relate directly to financial capabilities of our seniors. Finally, environmental stewardship. The environment is another extremely hot item, and for seniors, probably one of the hottest items beyond a seniors plan and geriatric health care for our members. Canadian Foundation for Economic Education is helping our members tremendously through webinars, which is phenomenal. And we're simply delighted to be a part of this and to confidently understand that we're funding research along the lines of NIA and initiating many seniors-oriented projects in every part of our country. We're delighted to be pressing for change on all our behalves, but particularly those of seniors. And next week, we're meeting with the provincial government here in Ontario to press all of these issues. So thank you for this. I'm looking forward to the discussion.
Thank you. Thank you, Jim. We've asked all of our speakers, as you can tell, to sort of scope out some of the problems and challenges. I live by the mandate that every problem is an opportunity. So after they continue to do so, and after Daphne's remarks, who will speak that, we'll turn more to focus on the positive side, what can be done, the big ideas, the policy initiatives and whatever that we feel can address the issues. But right now, to bring some personal aspect to the thing, Daphne.
Thank you. I'm here on the panel to provide humor, pathos, and a reality that many of us are living. Last year, I turned 65 and became myself a senior, entitled to representation, entitled to discounts at drugstores, subways, movie theaters. I have both my parents living, and I have children and grandchildren, so 4 generations, what a blessing. What a blessing. 95-year-old parents, how wonderful. This summer, my parents decided to permanently separate after 68 years of a miserable marriage. An inspiring story of how it is never too late for a couple to find happiness apart. But throughout that miserable separation, involving relocations, inveigling my brother and I into complex medical and legal maneuvers, my father became increasingly ill. My mother says, "Oh, separation, it's like a stone has been lifted from my heart." My father being the stone. And she is liberated and no longer caregiving to an ungrateful and sometimes belligerent husband, although wonderful father. Okay. But that stone has grown and sits like a boulder on the hearts of my brother and myself. My father fell multiple times requiring stitches, had a heart attack. Because we have power of attorney and his wishes are very clear, so we are already in a fortunate situation where he has made all the legal maneuvers, we were able to refuse surgery and refuse the installation of a stent or two into his heart. He didn't want that. He didn't eat solid food for a month. He told us he was dying. We were very prepared for his death. He was off to a hospital by ambulance multiple times, but like Gumby, he always bounced back. And until the situation was unbearable, we took him back. We took him back to be with my mother in a independent care seniors facility, very nice, 2-bedroom, extremely nice place. But when it became clear that he couldn't be there anymore, we refused, my brother and I refused to allow him to leave the hospital. To ensure he would be moved to a place suitable for a man with rapidly developing dementia, we had to engage in a terrible game of brinksmanship. After one of his falls, he lay in a hospital emergency gurney. You saw this on the front pages of all the newspapers. He lay in a hospital emergency gurney day and night in the corridor for 4 days. Finally, a room was found for him in the hospital because he had no home. My mother couldn't take him back. She didn't want him back. And besides, she may now be dying of cancer herself. So for 4 months, he was shunted from hospital to a less acute hospital, and we were part of the Ontario healthcare crisis this summer. As at last, one of the 5 nursing homes that we selected had a bed for him, and he was transferred by ambulance 2 weeks ago and is nicely settling in, you think. Not at all. Not at all. He is raging, lucid enough to know he is being warehoused, unable to be aware of how difficult he has become, impossible to care for in any location, including independent living, even with 24-hour caregivers, even in our own home. So I'm the Dean of the Ted Rogers School of Management, Canada's largest business school, and we got through the pandemic. And I want to visit my grandchildren and enjoy my life as a new senior. The data are clear about caregivers' stress and the likelihood we have, my brother and I, to develop our own illnesses as a result of the stress. I have so much admiration for the gentle caregivers taking care of my father now, how they're patient, how they're considerate, they're kind, they're better than my brother or I could ever be. But I am not accustomed to a 95-year-old, 3-year-old having temper tantrums. I like adult students. I like adult faculty, adult staff, not irrational and needy family. We are lucky in my family. As miserable as this situation is, we are lucky that our parents had finances in place to support their super seniority, now in 2 separate places. You cannot imagine the cost to us and the cost to taxpayers. Even with government support, my father's single room, a small single room in a nursing home, is almost $3,000 a month top up from the government security, which is $36,000 a year, which is $16,000 more than what Bonnie-Jeanne says the average person is getting. My mother's care is $6,000 a month for a small 1-bedroom and 1 bathroom where she has dignity, which is $72,000 a year. So my mother and my father together are well over $100,000 a year, even with my father subsidized heavily by the Canadian medical system. That's what it costs now to have two aging parents. It doesn't matter that they're separated because they chose to be separated. They would be separated for medical reasons anyway. It's $100,000 a year. Many people are living longer, but they are not living better. They need dedicated care. When we talk about a solution like a small home, that's good for 10 years, for 15 years. And then what happens when they turn into my father? So they paid taxes. They were exemplary citizens all their lives. My father has become a burden to the system rather than the respected beneficiary of his many contributions to business and to a good society. In conclusion, there is no senior magic bullet. Seniors are as diverse, indeed more diverse, than juniors because of the health problems. There are young seniors still working like me. There are super seniors like my mother, who's now flirting with freedom, and the 100-year-olds in her seniors' residence. Cute guys. And there are the seniors I see in the lockdown ward of the Alzheimer's and dementia unit, unable to speak, strapped in wheelchairs for their own safety, lonely and perhaps hoping for a kind death in the middle of the night. The problem is that Canada and every country has systems for seniors, but as seniors move from one system to the other, the chasms that develop in trying to move seniors from one system to the other are catastrophic. So there are different policies for different situations. And wow, is it ever complicated being the matriarch of 4 generations. I don't wish it on anyone. Thanks.
Awesome.
Thank you, Daphne. Daphne's story in various iterations and differences can be told tens of thousands of times across this country and will continue to evolve to be such. The challenge that we face in managing the future and current situation of our seniors is exceedingly important, and a notion of a national strategy to have plans and ideas for how to address the problems as they are and as they're evolving is extremely important. So, as noted, we did challenge seniors to share with us some of their big ideas, speaking to us from their point of view, what could be done to help seniors going forward. I'm pleased to introduce Kevin Maynard, who's the Vice President and COO of the Canadian Foundation for Economic Education. He's going to share with you 5 of the ideas that we received from seniors that we're actually going to share with the federal minister responsible for seniors. We've been in touch with the minister's department and share ideas, just hopefully that they will mill around and generate initiatives for the future.
Thank you, Gary. Delighted to be here, delighted to have the insight of our panelists. And certainly I share those concerns. My mom calls me a junior, or called me a junior senior. I just turned 60 and have had to deal with some of the challenges that some of the panelists have shared with you in their opening remarks. I would like to share with you, in the words of our 5 submissions that we selected, I would like to share with you their ideas to solving the big challenge faced by seniors and older adults in Canada. And in no particular order, I'm going to begin with a suggestion from Mahendra Joshi, who is from Ontario, and we've called his suggestion a buddy system for seniors. And in his words, this is his submission. Many baby boomers, now senior citizens, came to this country and worked hard to make Canada beautiful and attractive country for people all over the world to come and be the envy of the world. Some of these people cannot function perfectly and could use help in their daily living tasks, such as small maintenance, grocery shopping, general outings, making medical appointments, etc. Those who still maintain their culture and traditions can use help from a new generation who would interact with them by preparing meals and sharing entertainment. The young people can be matched in 1 or more areas as needed, and government can provide a subsidy to the younger generation. The younger people will also learn new skills from the seniors, and if they come from a similar geographic area, learn the traditions from that area. Many seniors are lonely and fragile, but they have their pride and do not wish to go into a senior's home that will curtail their enthusiasm for life. If they stay in their own homes, they will also free up spaces in seniors' homes and hospitals. In practice, a younger person can get a subsidy. No, in practice, a younger person comes and spends an hour or two with a senior. They talk of world news and share personal stories. The younger person can get a subsidy depending on the sincerity of the job done. They can help prepare food or play safely games together. So that's the first big idea from one of our selected submissions. The second idea from Alice Lee, also in Ontario, we call the third act. This proposal is to introduce the idea of a third act, an intergenerational startup hub for entrepreneurial-focused retirees looking to start a business and who need support with resources, business guidance, or funding. Following the global pandemic, a record number of Canadians aged 55 to 64 reported that they retired in the last 12 months. As the number of Canadians enter retirement, many are contemplating a different lifestyle or looking to embrace other options such as entrepreneurship. While Canada's startup ecosystem of business incubators and co-working spaces focuses mainly on youth, it largely ignores people 55 years and older looking to launch a business. There are many experienced individuals that after 2 or 3 decades of employment are seeking to pivot to new challenges of growth and to contribute to the community while remaining economically and intellectually active. This third act could be piloted as a virtual hub, supported by the many business incubators in existence at local universities, community colleges, municipalities, or centers for social innovation, where professional support and mentors have already been established. This would provide assistance for individuals to start micro-enterprises or solo entrepreneur businesses to develop things like products and services, helping fulfill dreams into new businesses, create self-employment, and build community with the younger generation who are also starting businesses. That's the second big idea. The third big idea from Sigrid Reed is called check before you check. In her words, every day we hear or read about seniors being scammed, the grandchild needing money to get out of jail, or who knows what, an investment scam, a CRA scam, contractors taking their money and not doing the work, and so on, and so on, and so on. And some we've not even heard about yet. As the title indicates, we need to give seniors a way to check if what they are hearing or reading is legitimate or is a scam. We have kids helplines, mental health helplines, and we do have seniors helplines. But my research shows they provide seniors with resources for emotional support, safety, planning, information, warm referrals to community support services, and supportive and crisis counseling. They can also connect callers to crisis outreach services for seniors for assistance, as well as the behavioral support outreach team, but nothing can alert them to scams per se. Also, many of these hotlines are town or city, municipally, or province specific. Since too many seniors across the country are being scammed out of hundreds of thousands of dollars daily, a dedicated Canada-wide helpline is needed to provide seniors with direct access to a scam hotline which can immediately let them know if they're being scammed, rather than a fraud line just for reporting fraud. So this is the third big idea from one of our seniors. The next, or fourth idea from Laura Kozlowski, also in Ontario, is called Sustainable Small Seniors Housing. For seniors and others, in her words, struggling financially and on a fixed income, I propose that any farmer with marginal land, difficult to grow crops, offer space for a nominal fee, perhaps $500 a month. For $400 would be for land use and $100 would be for repayment of any supplies per participant, couple, or family, who would then like to develop construction skills to develop and create their own house on wheels that is off the grid. They then go to live there in the country and participate in gardening and farming. Once the expense of materials is paid off, they are able to sell the tiny house or move it off the property as it is free and clear, or continue to stay on and pay for land use. These structures are off the grid, thus waste is pumped out, water is pumped in, heat is provided via generators and through solar options. This type of living provides active participation for physical health, a positive mental outlook, and is very affordable. Project leads could be community college programs and students that partner with this project. And the program can be offered to those on social assistance trying to rebuild their lives and younger adult teens who are also independent and in need. This is the fourth big idea from one of our submissions. The fifth and final idea is from Peggy Lashmere, and we call it Healthcare Screening Line for Seniors. In her words, I'd like to share my big idea for seniors, and it grew from an idea from a healthcare perspective with an accessibility lens. Currently, there is a doctor shortage in many areas of the province of Ontario. Emergency wait times are sometimes isolated, very long, and in some cases, emergency rooms are closing due to staff shortages. Many seniors are isolated. They're in long-term care facilities that are running short when it comes to availability of placements. My idea is for senior mobile care unit, including a call-in screening phone line. This service would be for seniors who may be isolated and unable to call someone if there's an urgent healthcare situation occurring in their own home, but not an emergency. This would also be for seniors who have limited mobility who are also unable to drive to a doctor. It is more than an urgent care mobile unit. The plan would also include options for a senior who suddenly develops a medical condition where they need to see a doctor during the day, but they don't feel it's an emergency. They could have a call-in line where they could share and screen some of their questions with a healthcare provider. And if it was an emergency call, the call would be referred directly to 911. The center could also offer translators who would offer services for our diverse populations. This is the fifth and final suggestion from the seniors that we heard from. And we heard from over 40 that were validated and were selected by a panel of experts in the field. So thank you, Gary, and thank you, panel. We're really looking forward to your comments about the 5 suggestions.
Thank you very much, Kevin. I think what we would like to do now is have each of our panelists have an opportunity to comment on both the ideas that have been shared here and also ideas that you have of yourself, to turn to the positive, proactive about what we can do to make things better in the lives of seniors in Canada. So Bonnie-Jeanne, why don't we start with you?
Perfect. Yeah, I mean, I think what I'll do is I'll touch on just some of the solutions we worked on at the university to kind of complement here. So really what we're focused on is how do we ensure seniors have more sustainable income as they get older. So it really boils down to that retirement financial security. So there's 2 major solutions. The first one is actually it already exists, which is great. And that is the option seniors right now have to delay their Canada Pension Plan. So the Canada Pension Plan is actually one of the, along with old age security, it is the first pillar, and really for most seniors, their only source of sustainable lifetime income. And what most people don't actually know is that they can delay their benefits. And by delaying these benefits, they're actually ensuring an increase to this lifetime gold-plated DB plan that's accessible to every working Canadian. So in my research, I basically found that delaying CPP is one of the most savvy financial investments compared to what's available in the market available. It's completely misunderstood, and it's really the best option out there. And unfortunately, not only are people not delaying their CPP, 95% of people are taking it by age 65. Early. They're taking it early. So what the heck is going on? And only 1% of Canadians are actually waiting to age 70. So this is a really, really fantastic solution to help people to actually get the sustainable pension income that they will so badly need as they get older. And by taking it early, they're really giving up so much lifetime guaranteed worry-free income. And just to give you an idea of what that means, the average Canadian is actually losing $100,000 in lifetime income by taking it at age 60 rather than at age 70. Because by delaying from 60 to 70, you're going to more than double your pension. So the good news is, this is its own kind of talk in and of itself, but for people who actually want to know more, they can go to the website. We had a lot of media coverage on this, but really what's most important about the research is the fact that it has now changed the standards of retirement financial planning advisors. It's also, we're working with policy makers like Service Canada so that they can actually explain this better to Canadians. So that's really the most important part of this. But I think when it comes to kind of solutions in Canada, The other one, if I have a second, I would like to mention this. The other big important solution is the fact that when people get to retirement, they have a pot of money and they're really forced between two options. And that is either they can buy an annuity or they can move their savings into a retirement fund called a RIF. These are really two inadequate solutions because nobody buys annuities. They're extremely expensive, less than 1%. The rest of the people basically put their money into these pots of savings and they're now being expected to manage it in a way that's going to last them for life, which is, as I said, an impossible task. So the concern around this really motivated research I started about 5 years ago, and I published in a paper in CD How. But the most important aspect of the research is the fact that it motivated the biggest coalition of Canadian pension stakeholders in Canada to come together, go to the federal government and say, we have a third solution. And that third solution is basically called a dynamic pension. What a dynamic pension would actually allow seniors to do is to bring their money together and create their own pensions. There's no reason why you need to be with an employer in retirement to have a pension. This actually continues to give you access to the capital markets, but it also, most important, solves the biggest problem, help people from running out of money in retirement. So this is something we're working on. We released a paper. We're still working with all the stakeholders. It actually made its way into the federal budget directly from our coalition, and it's actually now changed the Income Tax Act, and the regulators are now changing it. So this is one of the biggest changes to the Canadian retirement income system in decades, and it was really a direct result of like-minded, thoughtful people who came together because they saw a real problem. So there is a lot of success. Other success in Canada, we have some of the strongest public sector pensions in the world. We actually are the first country in the world to have mutual funds who also, they actually pool longevity risk, and that's actually done by Purpose Financial, and this is huge. So this is a new industry innovation. We're the envy of the world for what we've done now in the mutual fund world. And finally, as I said, our Canada Pension Plan, it's really the safest financial program in Canada. It's a $400 billion fund, completely arm's length from any politician. No one can access it. It's all there for seniors, but we really need to create financial incentives for people to actually make the most of it. And this is the work we're doing. So these are some of the solutions. Again, all this research is on our website, lots of media. So please go there if you're interested in knowing more.
Thank you, Bonnie-Jeanne.
Yeah.
Jim.
Yeah, phenomenal discussion. I'm going to talk about the winners' ideas in a moment, but Bonnie-Jeanne has sparked a number of thoughts. The issue of taking Canada Pension Plan at age 60 sort of evolved from some financial planners saying you may live a long time and therefore taking it at 60 gives you more money for yourselves as you age. We are, through our retirement planning workshops, constantly urging our retirees to defer, hold on, index the pension, if you would, to age 70, for all of the reasons that Bonnie-Jeanne has said. Such a good idea. I love the practicality of the big idea challenge winners. And when you saw the faces of these winners, you can see that these are not seniors. These are very much active, ready to go. They're sort of in their prime years, and they've got some really cool ideas. Everybody is affected, as Sigrid said, with the scams that are emerging on your phone or online all of the time. She's looking for ways to have a sifting and sorting process where a senior isolated can actually phone a trusted source and say, is this something I need to respond to or not? 9 times out of 10, we know it's false, but some of them are awfully, awfully compelling, and they look very cool. This third act, I'm retired-ish. I retired from education. I went to the ministry. I retired from the ministry, came to this, and who knows what I'm going to do next. But this third act of allowing some opportunity for people who decide that they've paid their dues, they've done what they need to do to age 55 or 60, they'd like to go on and do something for themselves and actually create a little business for themselves is entirely possible. And I think the incubation idea that Kevin read on third act is a pretty good idea. and certainly worth pursuing. The small housing, I'm not sure that farmers are prepared to give up a whole lot of their bottom land, as they might call it. But nonetheless, we see small houses, little tiny houses, as being quite a solution, certainly in urban Canada. Why not? Last point, I think the screening for seniors to get some sort of access to a reliable source for their health is so important, and we've found through the pandemic and post-pandemic that's simply not available right now. It's so hard for seniors to access anything like that. So I'm going to stop at that point because we need to give time to
Daphne. Thank you, Jim. Daphne.
Well, I'm going to try to translate these ideas into what might have worked or improved the lives of my family, because I don't have the expertise that other panelists have. But I want to start with the idea of the mobile medical unit. I was a bookmobile kid. And I know that in order for my parents to go to medical appointments, which are only available during the day, it's very hard. I'm working, my brother's working. How do we get them? So there's I-rides and there's all kinds. The chance of my parents falling, getting into an I-ride vehicle to get to the job is huge. It's huge. Once they tried to take the subway system and they ended up, instead of getting off in Vaughan, they ended up getting lost and ending up in Brampton together, in Brampton city center, with no clue where they were in the universe, which is a horrible critical incident for people. So I love the idea of healthcare coming to them, because it's not just that it's accessible and it comes to them, it eliminates all of the disasters that can happen while going out. So I think that that's really got legs. The check before you check, my father can't work a phone to figure out to call. So if I was going to it's a great idea because he's scammed every minute of every day, and he says, oh, I have to answer the email. And I say, no, you don't. He says, but they know who I am. I said, no, but they know who millions of people are. There's a factory in Russia that, and I make up this place that is just generating scams. And he can't understand that it even ought to be checked on. So that's for younger, more savvy seniors, but there's no reason that artificial intelligence and algorithms cannot eliminate fraud. So the second that something is reported, it should be brought down. So maybe we should be working with Google, with Facebook, with other providers to eliminate fraud contact. And we do that with children. We do that when children are not allowed to look at porn. Why can't we do that where you report and the system is brought down? The system of fraud is brought down. So I could see that morphing into something that is really big. The sustainable small seniors housing, I could go into that very easily. My parents would never have left an unhappy place, but for the very reason that they want to stay in place, they are unlikely to say, I want to leave my community and go somewhere else. So if there were ways of bringing it into where they already live, that it was integrated into the system, as you said, it might work. Buddy system, of course, ethnic communities, language communities, food communities, this is a no-brainer. As soon as they go into independent living or, these cruise ships that are seniors' homes, they lose their ethnic food. And the ethnic food that is provided to them is ersatz ethnic food. It's just awful. I mean, I've eaten the Chinese food there. It's not Chinese food. I've eaten the Jewish food. It's not Jewish food. So the idea of, a taste of home may be very nice. So I'm going through these and I'm sort of modifying them for what would work as different kinds of seniors make use of them. Yep. So they're good ideas, all of them.
Thank you. And I think one of the lessons we've learned along the way from a lot of the work we've done in entrepreneurship is that an entrepreneur probably needs about 10 ideas before they find the one that is actually a good one. And what we need to do is we need to be encouraging ideas. We've got obviously these challenges that are very significant and that need to be addressed. We need to be more proactive. We need to be encouraging and generating ideas that we can actually find the best ones that we can pursue going forward. And I would like to, on behalf of the group here, thank our panelists for their comments and presentations. It's a really important issue. I hope this is an ongoing one at the forum and one that's assigned priority because I know I'm going to need that help very soon. So thank you all for attending, and I turn it back to Joe.